Max was the kind of guy I looked up to at that stage. Being so young, because he won everything he ever did. I guess to get a photo with him here was pretty cool. 5,170 likes. It's the most liked photo to this point.
Verstappen's dominance in the past couple of years has been leaving fans in awe. And it's not just the fans. The F1 drivers and team bosses have had their say on the Dutchman's performance as well. While you'd normally expect everybody to hate him for his personality, you'd be amazed how many friends Verstappen has on the grid. And in this video, we're going to cover the F1 experts' opinions on the soon-to-be three-time world champion. Earlier this season, Max Verstappen surpassed Sebastian Vettel in terms of wins while driving for Red Bull. However, when it comes to World Championships won with the Red Bull team, Vettel leads 4-2. Christian Horner has been the team principal during both Verstappen and Vettel's successful periods with Red Bull. Although their results have been quite alike, Horner emphasises that there's a significant distinction between the two drivers, and this distinction has an impact on how Red Bull operates. In Horner's view, Sebastian Vettel is someone who delves deeply into the technical aspects and finds engineering fascinating. On the other hand, Max Verstappen relies more on his instincts and feeling when driving. The difference is reflected in how they communicate with the team. Vettel's debriefing sessions can be quite detailed and take up to an hour and a half, while Verstappen's are much shorter, around 10 minutes. However, both drivers share a strong determination and dedication to their craft, making them quite similar in that regard. This is what he said. I think Sebastian is much more into the details, fascinated by the engineering, I would say, Horner said to Viaplay at the Italian GP. Max is much more seat of the pants, so Sebastian's debrief would take an hour and a half, Max's is 10 minutes. So they are different in the way that they communicate, but in terms of the determination and application they have, they are very similar. But of course, Max is just Horner's favourite driver, but what really do other drivers think of him? We know that in the past, Max and Lewis Hamilton didn't really see eye to eye much and would often find themselves in contact, especially when they battled for the 2021 World Championship. That season, Sergio Perez played a crucial role in helping Max get that title and even gained a nickname, Minister of Defence, for his amazing work at slowing down Hamilton. But Perez over the next season and the current one found himself feeling in the shadow of Max and maybe somehow felt that Max didn't really feel any gratitude towards him, especially since Max on many occasions didn't let Perez pass him and took the fastest lap from him on multiple occasions when in fact he really didn't have to do it. Despite not seeing eye to eye much, Perez spoke to Sky Sports F1 and clarified why there was such a significant gap between him and Max Verstappen during the Belgian Grand Prix. Perez mentioned that right after Verstappen overtook him, Max accelerated vigorously and had a much better second part of the race, which allowed him to widen the gap between them. Additionally, Perez made a mistake and went off track at turn 11, which further increased the gap. Perez said, "There's nothing to be taken away from Max, certainly. He did a tremendous race and has had a tremendous season." On the other hand, Mercedes principal Toto Wolff doesn't really seem much impressed by the Dutch driver. He dismissed the record as irrelevant, as he reported on ESPN. Wolff went on to say that this record was merely a number on a Wikipedia statistics page and didn't necessarily prove that Max Verstappen was the best driver in the world. In a similar vein, Lewis Hamilton, during an interview with Sky Sports, expressed his opinion that Verstappen hasn't had to compete against equally strong teammates while racing for Red Bull. In response to Hamilton's comments, Verstappen brushed them off, stating that he doesn't really care about Hamilton's perspective. He also mentioned that despite Mercedes' years of success, they're finding it challenging to cope with losing. But of course, Helmut Marko couldn't really sit and watch as these comments went by and responded to what Toto Wolff said about Wikipedia, pointing out that Wikipedia is actually widely read. He also mentioned that their team focuses on their work without creating stories like Mercedes does. However, Marko indicated that they won't be concerned about Mercedes, Wolff or Hamilton until they pose a genuine challenge as rivals once again. We all know that Fernando Alonso is a big fan of Max Verstappen, and after the most recent Dutch GP, he only had positive comments to say about him. He claimed that it is underestimated sometimes what Max is achieving, adding that it's so complicated to win in a dominant sport such as F1. Let's not forget about Lando Norris, who is probably Verstappen's best friend on the paddock. Norris has even argued that Max is not only the best driver in the last 3 years, but most likely the last 6 or 7 years, and even went as far as to say that he deserved the titles from those years. In the Hamilton versus Verstappen debate, Lando has been a loud Verstappen supporter, and not only that, but recent reports and statements suggest that he could potentially join Max as a teammate in Red Bull. Even Max Verstappen himself had something to say about this. "We talk about it," said Verstappen, who has previously described Norris as his best friend on the grid in an interview with Sky Sports in Italy. But he's contracted to McLaren for a long time. We'll see what happens in the future. Daniel Ricciardo, former teammate of Max Verstappen, has also been very vocal about him and even offered support after his controversial World Championship title race in Abu Dhabi in 2021. He disagrees with the notion that Max Verstappen isn't a deserving world champion. During their time as teammates at Red Bull from 2016 to 2018, Ricciardo and Verstappen were often evenly matched. Ricciardo even outperformed Verstappen in their first 2 seasons together, but Verstappen came out ahead in the 2018 season. When asked if racing closely with a future world champion made him think more highly of his own skills, Ricciardo playfully responded that he considers himself a world champion as well, even though he doesn't have the championship trophy to prove it. "Being teammates with Max, I knew that we were pushing each other to a pretty high level. I knew that whilst we were teammates, even though we weren't world champions, I felt like with the way we were driving, it could have given us the world title in some of those years, at least one. But I didn't really need to see him win the title to show that to myself. I feel like I really have felt that or known that for a while. It was kind of a matter of time for him to get a title, for sure." The decision to leave Red Bull was made by Daniel Ricciardo himself, and Max Verstappen expressed that he actually wanted him to stay during that time. Verstappen mentioned that he had already talked with Ricciardo recently and saw his excitement, especially after driving their car. Verstappen is glad to have Ricciardo back in the team's family and emphasised that he never really wanted him to leave in the first place. They have a good relationship, and if Ricciardo performs well in his current team, there's always the possibility of returning to Red Bull in the future. But it's not just current drivers who like Max Verstappen. Many old legends had something to say about him too. Despite his recent success, 3-time world champion Jackie Stewart believes that it's too soon to determine his all-time status in Formula One. According to Stewart, the real test will come later in Verstappen's career. "It's too early because he's still winning. As long as he keeps winning and then he stops before he's not winning. Fangio was able to do that. Verstappen now is driving so well. He's absolutely clear in his head and very impressive. I mean, he's not wrong. It's still too early, but that's a great start." Red Bull's Chief Technology Officer, Adrian Newey, who has worked with many Formula One legends over the years, stated in a recent interview that Max Verstappen has already secured a place among the all-time greats in the sport. According to Newey, Verstappen's performance is currently at its peak. Winning the championship in 2021 relieved a lot of pressure on him, and it's reflected in his driving, which has significantly improved. Verstappen appears to be in complete harmony with his car, and like other racing legends, he seems to almost instinctively control the car, leaving him with ample mental capacity to think about various aspects of racing. Former Formula One team principal Eddie Jordan took it a step further in his Formula for Success podcast, suggesting that Verstappen might eventually become the greatest driver in the sport's history. Jordan praised Verstappen's exceptional attitude in the car, noting his ability to be both aggressive and clever when necessary, and to take care of the car. Jordan also expressed uncertainty about where the next world champion in Formula One would come from, given Verstappen's current dominance. But in the end, I guess Verstappen's biggest praise came in 2016 during the Brazilian GP, where he had an amazing race during rain. After the race, Jos Verstappen said he'd never seen anything like that in his life, and that he was extremely proud and did not expect Max to drive like that, even though he knew him very well. Not only that, F1 legend Niki Lauda took his cap off in respect and also said that he'd never seen anyone driving like that as well.